Yep, Greg. Okay, good. Good evening. It's April 19th. It's time for the Sherborn Board of Selectmen meeting. David, if you could review our agenda, please.
Yep, sure. First, we'll vote to approve or amend the agenda, and then a period of public comment, and there are no sign-ups for public comment. And then we have a consent agenda with a one-day pouring license for a wedding in April 28th, a promoter's license waiver for Friends of the Sherborn Library for the annual library fair on May 12th, a consideration of town administrator payroll warrant, minutes of March 8th, 2018, March 15th, 2018, and March 26th, 2018, and then signing of the town election warrant. The town clerk is not here. And then the meeting calendar, or setting the next meeting date at May 10th, 2018. And review or update with the library, about the library expansion, town hall campus site plan, Beacon Architectural Associates and Green International, with Mary Moore, the chair of the Library Board of Trustees, and Sean Colleen, director of CM&D Facilities Manager, will be here. Sean Colleen will also give a post-storm cleanup and street sweepings update. Then 2018 annual town meeting items. The town meeting is being held April 24th. This will be review warrant and advisory committee report, review debt exclusion, Prop 2.5 ballot questions, consideration of positions on warrant articles if needed, or budget, capital items, or other articles. Then under routine business, we have town administrator reports, selectmen reports, and then adjourn not to return to public session. Then with an executive session under MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21.3, to discuss strategy with respect to potential threatened litigation, since an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the position of the town if so declared by the chair, and it's in regards to Mercurio versus Town of Sherborn.
Okay, thanks, David. One change I see, which is our next meeting is April 24th, not May 10th.
Correct.
So we can schedule a May 10th meeting, but it's April 24th. So does anybody want to make a motion to approve that warrant?
So move.
Okay, and no changes? Okay, all in favor? Great, okay, good. So we're doing something a little new this time. Instead of going through a lot of procedural stuff, although David read it very slowly, so we may have cost ourselves all the time savings that way. But we've got a consent agenda which has a number of items on it, and I guess what we'll do is if somebody wants to hold something, we'll hold it, but otherwise we would take a motion to approve all of these items. There's a one-day pouring license, a promoter's license, payroll warrant, minutes, and vote to sign. Minutes you're going to hold?
No.
What were you holding?
Signing, the one you're about to read.
Okay, the signing of the town election warrant, and then setting the next meeting for May 10th. So Paul wants to discuss the signing of the election warrant. Do we have a motion to approve the other items that are on that agenda? George has moved.
There are two things to.
You want to hold?
I've got some typos in the minutes, and then the one-day pouring license is also looking for a waiver of the fee.
It's for the wedding?
Yep. Oh, not for the wedding, I'm sorry, that's for the,
The promoter's license is,
Yeah.
that's what we're voting on, is the waiver of the fee for the promoter's license.
oh, it is on the second, I'm sorry, yep.
That's okay.
So how do you want to handle changes to the minutes?
We might as well talk about them if you've got changes we need to talk about. But let's vote the other stuff first. So,
Okay.
so we'll take the other items on the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve? Okay, all in favor? Great, good. Didn't save time this time, but maybe the next time we will. That's an experiment. All right, Chuck, what do you have to say about these
Two
minutes?
typos on the minutes. On page 3 of the March 8th minutes, the third motion from the bottom, it was a 3-1 vote, not a 4-1 vote. And then on the sorry, I think it's the March 15th minutes, again, the third page, about halfway down under tasers, it refers to an FY19 disbursement. I think that should be disbursement.
Yeah, with a B, yep.
And those are the two
All right, great.
typos.
All right, good. Diane, would you, in the future, put page numbers on these minutes
will.
too, or whoever's doing them? It's so much easier to read with page
Right.
numbers.
I will.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve those minutes as Chuck has modified them?
So move.
Okay, all in favor? Great, okay, good. And then the election warrant, Paul?
Well, if you look at the election warrant, it goes question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, and then it goes back to question 2. I don't think we
Yes,
should
so
have,
what's your problem with that?
I don't think we should have 2 question 2s. That might be confusing to the voters when they
That's
say
an upside
question
down
2 passed.
5, Paul, that's what that is. It's just an upside down 5. Okay, so we'll make that change. Were there any other
No.
edits or concerns anybody had on this? Good catch, though. All right, so do we want to vote to sign this?
As amended.
Okay. As amended, all in favor? All right, so somebody will revise this and we can get this signed up
Yeah, the clerk's office.
by May 1st? Okay. That's fantastic. And now I think we can go on to the next item, which is review and update of the library expansion town hall campus plan with Beacon Architectural Associates, Mary Moore, Chair of the Library Board of Trustees, Sean Colleen, guest starring Sean Colleen, Director of CM&D, and Facilities Manager. And I don't know how we want to proceed here. I think, I talked to Mary a little the other day. Maybe the thing to do, Mary or somebody, would be give a update or a status report of where we are, and then maybe walk us through the plan, since that was the purpose you wanted to have us review that plan?
Can I ask a procedural
Yeah, sure.
question? We didn't expect having a quorum for the LDC here, but we do. So it wasn't posted. I don't know if we need to send a few people home. I don't know if they'll mind.
If you're not deliberating, I don't think so, right?
Right, the open meeting law permits quorums of boards to attend meetings of other boards as long as somebody has posted a meeting, which we have. So you're all fine.
You just can't talk to each other.
You can't deliberate, so don't sit near each other.
Okay. Sign that, Paul.
Oops, you missed Nancy.
Do I miss you on public comment, Nancy, or did you just sign up for public comment?
I didn't see anyone on public comment.
I think it's one of those, did you hold this over a light bulb and the ink came out? Is that what happened? Okay, we'll get to you later. Thank you.
So
Mary.
I'm just going to give a quick introduction. I'm Mary Moore. I'm Chair of the Trustees. We are here tonight to review the revision or the modifications to the site plan that have been presented to the Planning Board in late March. The changes were needed for a couple of reasons. The first one was some response to the Mass DEP getting stuff out of the Zone 1. The second issue was related to some trees that were removed and some updated parking that we were able to put in because of that. And then the third issue was to address some additional parking opportunities that we had with those changes. Sean's been working really closely with the LBC and the trustees on this. And I'm going to pass it off to Peter Byerly and Peter Richardson, who will walk through the revisions and answer questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much. If you don't mind, we'll take a minute to set up.
Yeah, please do, Peter. And you're with Beacon, is that right, or Green?
Yes, my name is Peter Byerly. I'm with Beacon Architectural Associates.
That's what I thought I remembered that. Yeah, the scale, it's pretty rough to read the details, isn't it? I like it too, but I don't read them at this scale.
Oh, the scale.
You need a magnifying glass.
20 years ago, I could read them at this scale. But not now.
Yeah, thank you. Once again, my name is Peter Byerly from Beacon Architectural Associates. And the reason we're here is, as Mary pointed out, is there have been some changes to the approved site plan for the library and for the town campus because of two items. The DEP cease and desist order and the fact that a few trees were removed because they were deemed to be hazard trees. I brought the existing site plan, which was the site plan which was present before the construction started, mostly as just a reference. And the reason is just to show that there was parking here, the three buildings. Present, the original parking spaces, without counting the spaces for the police, were roughly 64 spaces with accessible spaces added. In the proposed scheme, as Mary mentioned, we presented to the planning board. There are basically 4 items that we wanted to review with the planning board, and it was called a minor modification. The first item was there's due to the fact that the library needs to be sprinklered and there is no adequate public water supply, we added a 20,000 gallon tank which will hold water for the sprinkler system for the library. That tank had to be relocated outside of the Zone 1, which is represented by this circle. So that was the first change, was to relocate the tank. The second thing was that we're presently upgrading the town hall emergency generator to serve both the town hall and the library. So that was the second piece that needed to be amended. The third was the trees in this particular area were removed, and we were able to capture more parking spaces and whatnot in order to accommodate parking for both the library and for the rest of the town hall. And then the final bit was the reconfiguration of the parking and the site plan around because of these other changes. So just briefly, what has ended up happening is the intrusions are the ones that are shown in gray. So as you can see, there's some new parking spaces were added here. We now have accessible spaces and a very nice accessible route up into the library. We've restriped this portion of the parking, gaining more parking spaces along in here. We've reconfigured the entryway. After meeting with some of the town agencies, police department and fire department, we were able to regrade and propose to reconfigure the turning radius around the present town hall, and we're able to gain more parking spaces along this portion, partially going onto the what's called a caustic property. It's a relatively minor change, and the only actual physical change that you will see will be we're going to reconfigure the existing stone wall, which presently runs along the front here. And then the last is just there will be some additional site work done around to accommodate the new and larger emergency generator for town hall. But that's pretty much it. I think that the net for the town is that we've added 9 more spaces to town parking from what we had before, and I think that the spaces are well positioned for the 3 entities that use the campus: the police station, town hall, and the library.
Can you show that tank again? I missed where you.
That was the question I had.
Yeah, so the proposed underground storage tank will be right here.
Okay, so it's on this plan as a rectangle. I don't see it.
That's correct.
It doesn't look like it's labeled, but maybe it is.
It's another plan.
If you look at C104,
Okay.
if you look in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see that there's a number. This is C104 is probably the easiest to see the proposed.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Okay. All right, so there's a pump chamber house, and this is a separate item that's a below-ground tank, is that right?
Correct. So the tank is basically the water reservoir. The pump chamber, which is underground, is what obviously supplies the pressure to the library sprinkler system.
And where's the emergency generator?
The emergency generator is roughly in the same location, on the west side of Town Hall.
Is that still within the circle, though? Like, isn't that a?
It's partially within the circle, but it's quote-unquote grandfathered in.
It was before, too.
Okay, I thought that was one of the issues that DEP had. No?
Not, because we decided to combine with Town Hall, the Town Hall generator located there was grandfathered in, and so now rather than buying two generators, we're gonna just have one generator and they're all gonna have everything.
And it can stay there without any issue with DEP?
It's best to keep it outside David's office. That way he can hear it.
Vent it right into my window.
Go get the first juice.
Early warning system. Are there only, I'm surprised that there are only 9 parking spots that we picked up in the reconfiguration, because with the additional spots to the north and east of the grass island, and then the space where the trees and bushes used to be, I would have thought that there's more than 9, but it's, that, the grand total between the two plans is only an increase of 9?
Well, again, it's not all the parking spaces. I did not count the parking, which is pretty much dedicated for the police.
Peter, it's on that chart right
Yeah.
there. Up to 71.
72 is what it says there.
It's 72 and it was 64 before.
Prior to the project, it was what?
Prior to the project, it was 54.
You're saying, we had already gained, on the original plan, we had already gained spots, so now
Correct.
it's 9 more over what we had originally. I see.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant to, I'm sure, it's 9 more in addition to the original site plan.
Okay.
So just, if you could refresh my recollection, you said there were 4 things that we were doing. One was the generator, one was a tank, one was the 9 more parking spaces. What was the 4th?
Access for the fire department, right? The wider access.
And reconfiguring.
We were able to widen the, speaking, we're widening the path around the town hall for the fire department.
Yeah, so
We wanted to give them wider access, so.
Especially when the trees were.
Will the traffic pattern be a one-way? That's, I know there's been questions about that,
Definitely,
so.
this way is one way, but.
this way, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure if the other one
I
has
didn't
to
know,
be.
like, going around the building, though.
So yes, you jump into the second half of this
Oh, okay.
conversation, but yes.
That's right. So, and that's what allows us to get the angle parking.
Go ahead, Paul.
So when a car drives in to the entrance, it goes right, swings around the whole building?
You can, correct.
Well, it can go straight and make the small loop, or it can go right and make the big loop.
Go straight in, right?
You go straight.
There's-
Go
there's-
either way,
there's-
one right or straight.
Right or straight.
Yep.
So, in other words, there's, this is like it's hard to tell because this is highlighted.
Here, Paul, you can go
Because this plan is
this,
for
or you
contractors.
can do that.
There's a one-way loop around the grass
Sorry,
island.
that.
Right.
There you go.
Around this grass island here.
So
On
it's the
both
same
sides.
traffic pattern as exists now? Okay.
Except nobody drives around the building now. Has DEP seen the site layout and signed off on it?
DEP has seen this site layout. They responded with a number of clarifications, and we're going to be issuing the answers to all of the clarifications.
But the clarifications have to do with some subsurface stuff and things like that, but in terms of the surface configuration, what you're locating in the areas, are they comfortable with that?
Again, I guess, I think that they are, yeah, but
Those comments didn't address that, right?
Right, they
they
were
were
very
all
much specific
subsurface.
to some plumbing questions. They really didn't address,
There were no sort of design issues.
That's what I was wondering, okay.
But it was a denial. I was a little dismayed to see something said DEP was not approving the plan unless these things were addressed. That's the way I read it.
I think that they were looking for clarifications, and if we weren't, if we did not accommodate them, then that's how I read it.
So you believe if we clarify those points, that letter meant they would approve it?
That's the assumption, yes.
Okay?
That's the assumption we're all working on.
But that isn't what the letter said, just speaking as a lawyer. It says we're not approving it because we need clarification on these points. It doesn't say, if you clarify these points, we will approve it. But I understand
But
you're acting on that assumption, and if you,
all that we can do is answer the
yeah.
issues that they brought up.
So there are, just trying to figure this out again. So there's another underground water tank here. Is that gonna be abandoned in place? What's happening to that? The old one, the current one?
That's for the
You
town
know
hall.
on Washington Street?
Yeah,
That's the town hall.
and that's staying.
Yeah,
So this other tank over here is only for the library?
couldn't combine.
You couldn't
Sounds
couldn't
like you
comply for
tried.
technical, regulatory, or what? Technical?
Yeah, technical.
Right.
We tried that early on, and it's woefully undersized.
Mm-hmm.
And-
To today's code, it's undersized for this building.
And the pump chamber was undersized too, so it would have been a lot of, working on grade.
So we've got a separate pump going over there too then?
Yeah, there's pumps out there for this building, pumps over there for that.
Yeah.
But, so, the major difference is, we wouldn't put it out there again because the pumps end up above ground.
Yeah, and
So
it'll,
there's no way we'd wanna put them on the front lawn again.
Yeah.
Those are below grade.
Yeah.
The ones that we're putting in, the tank is below grade, but the pumps are above grade.
Okay.
What is the additional cost for this plan versus the original site plan?
We have no idea.
we don't know that yet.
When will you have an estimate?
We're working on we're working on an estimate now, but, and then it'll have to be priced by the contractor, and then we'll have to rectify the two.
Because, I mean, I guess the question is, where's the, I mean, what part of this is the library cost versus town hall, camp, building and facilities?
So, the major facility part is the generator, because it's shared. We were already gonna operate our generator. We still don't have a definitive number on what the generator costs, what the share is. So I can't even.
You're just working with the library on that when you get
Site
those?
side of that, and I will say the second half, and I'd rather do it after you vote on the library plan, is just a discussion about the paving. You see that 3/4 of the site is getting paved on the library. You know, everything that's darkened on that plan is library. Well, we're not gonna not pave the other portions as the town. From the police station is.
Right, you're gonna pave the whole thing at once, right?
So we'll discuss that. That's outside of this approval.
What does the pump chamber look like, the above-ground pump chamber?
It's just gonna be a small, the chamber itself is below grade, it's basically like an oversized manhole, and then there's just a small housing,
But is it industrial looking, or is it gonna have some character to it, or?
What we called out for is to have it boarded with cedar.
You know, have it boarded with cedar, okay, all right.
It'll be a small outbuilding.
Okay, yeah, because it's not the kind of thing you want to cover with landscaping, because you have to be able to access it, right?
A little too tall to cover over those people.
Yeah, how tall is
I
it?
think it's 8 or 9 feet.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Any
So,
windows, peaked roof, none of that? Just a big block?
Block,
Okay.
Looks like an outhouse.
similar.
Oh, you put a moon on the front, that's a good idea.
Moons on each side.
We could do that.
Tell
Like we
everybody
thought you
it's-
were looking for a weather vane.
Oh, that's thinking, that's good. I also see, is there a manhole on this underground water?
Several.
Correct.
Oh, there's several, okay.
Separated, they're no different than a manhole you'd see. in-
Well, the only reason I'm asking is because one of them is under a parking space, and it seems to
Yes.
me, if you want to access it, you may not want to have it under the parking
No,
space.
it-
But if you've got another one, I guess that's
It's rated
fine.
with a riser. It's 5 or 6 feet below grade.
I just meant,
Has a riser.
if you needed to get in there and somebody was parked on top of it, you'd have an issue, right?
You don't need it for emergency access.
Yeah.
You don't, okay. That is what I'm asking.
The reason that the spaces stop shy of getting to the house is because there's a hydrant there
Okay,
that the fire truck needs access to.
okay.
And I don't know, it does show up there. In that drawing, it shows up that
Yeah,
there's hash
the
marks
manual
there
thing
that
is-
are.
There's no parking
That's the
fire
fire
lane.
lane
Yes,
area,
there's a fire lane.
exactly.
That's the access, in case the ladder truck needed to park next to the building, that's its access, that's where the outriggers would be.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rick could maybe speak
That's
to that
part of,
more,
this,
but
this had to be widened in order to accommodate that.
both buildings had to be considered at this point. We had to consider access to town hall,
And
Yeah.
which is very much improved now compared to where we started. And
Yeah,
you need access to that pump house in the event that there's a fire at the library.
Yeah,
Which may sound odd, but that's what a standby does for the library.
Okay.
Keep our truck up to.
Sean, this may be a question for you as well. The 8-foot slat fence around the generator, is that just a noise knockdown, or is it access, or is it an aesthetic thing for our town administrator doesn't have to look at it?
No, he'll still look down at the top of the generator. It doesn't help his view at all.
Good, okay, that's,
Nothing to do with this.
so what,
It's just so you don't look at a generator. That's really it. Noise, the noise will be greatly improved compared to what's there. What's there was built to the standards in the early '90s. This is, I think it's tier 4 generator. It's gonna have a stack that goes all the way up the roof, so you don't have the emissions dumping out right next to his window.
That's what happened.
They really do.
that's what you care about.
And I think it's operated on a monthly basis for a few minutes or so.
Weekly, Monday afternoon too.
You can reset that to be Sunday afternoon. So what is the issue before us?
Can I
To-
can I raise one more question? I'm
yeah,
sorry.
Mary, sure.
I think there was one more thing that we talked about with the planning board, was that the stormwater calcs, because of the extra 9 spaces, was redone, and so the water basin at the bottom is enlarged
Right.
slightly to
Slightly,
accommodate that. So that was part of the redesign also, was
Right,
that all the
correct.
calcs.
Yeah, adding the additional parking, additional impervious, and we mitigated that by making some modifications to the detention area.
And the detention area is where, that's at Samhain and Sanger?
Down below the police station, down.
Yeah.
down in this area.
This
So
should be
this
the
increases-
corner.
We were able to increase the size of that.
Where's their
to
septic field for this?
accommodate the,
That's on one of the plans.
Second field is right in between the.
It's probably worth noting that they're mentioning a change. We weren't capturing any of the stormwater in that upper portion and taking it to the basin. We were just sheet blowing off the parking lot towards the septic and the well.
Mm-hmm.
and I think
So-
we're also adding a little
greatly
right off the parking too.
Improve the stormwater,
Right.
Yeah,
which is a big deal when we talk about our MS4 permit later.
Yeah,
and I think you all received a packet with the, if you're interested, with the hydraulic calcs and whatnot.
It was 66 pages. We didn't print
Oh, you didn't print it all?
it. They were emailed it.
We got it by email, right?
Oh, yeah, so.
so we're gonna put some landscaping or anything around? Is it just gonna be grass? Is there gonna be a flower bed? I mean, it's looking a little industrial in terms of all the utility equipment that's coming in, and even what you see outside now with the widened parking space. Is there a plan to finish that off at the end? Pretty it up a little bit?
Which part? You talking the generator?
The appearance when you come in the front of the driveway to Town Hall, which now looks like mud and a lot of things that were cleared away that used to be there, and then soon is gonna have a 10-foot cedar-sided cube with or without a moon painted on the front, and a generator with a slat fence around it. So, and a couple of, above-ground features also. So are we gonna do anything, whether it's the library or the town, are we gonna do anything to kind of modernize the landscaping out there, which is a little sad already?
Well, we can't put anything around the pump house
No.
on the front side.
Something to get people to look away from the pump house and towards the beautiful garden in the other direction or something.
We can work on the beautiful garden in the other
Okay,
direction.
all right.
The generator, we also, I was shy.
Yeah, you're not gonna put any vegetation around that.
Fence is the best. Yeah, we keep putting vegetation against our town hall and then we chase it up.
Yeah,
the
no,
side of the building.
that's not where we want the vegetation, yeah.
We have it right now, we ripped out. Fence should screen it well. I don't have a great answer. I would say that my hope, and it's not part of this plan approval, it's hopefully part of the construction, once we clear through the DEP, is the big hump of dirt and the bunker that's out there that used to be the couple 1,000-gallon storage tank that's half above ground will go away, which was one of the biggest eyesores in the back. Most people probably don't notice it because it's
No, I know what you mean.
like a hedge of mess. That will hopefully be removed, because right now there's still water lines that go through there, there's electric that goes through there to the well. It's most likely gonna be cleaned up so it doesn't, and then we can look at removing that at the tail end of this project.
Yeah, I mean, I would, it's a little bit beyond where we are today, but I would just say, you know, I go to a lot of town halls. There's town halls that are buildings in a sea of parking without a lot of character. And then there are town halls that were actually designed by architects and landscape architects and look really nice. You're doing a library that's gonna look really nice. You're trying to create a town campus. To have the spaceship town hall land in the middle of the parking field without anything around it, we gotta do something a little bit to you know, elevate that as well, I think. That's my aesthetic comment for the day. Chuck, you have more to add on that front, or otherwise?
I have nothing to add on the aesthetic front.
There you go, okay.
Well, I was in the process of asking what this agenda item is
They're-
calling
they're look-
for.
They're looking for well, as the body that is in charge of the town hall campus, they're looking for our okay to proceed with this. They've got planning board review in favor of this design, and as you heard, I guess they're going back to DEP to make some minor revisions to the, you know, some of the area within the well setback, but
Well, the agenda item is review and update. The
Well-
agenda item is not to consider
well,
approval of a
well, I'm not sure, I don't know if it's an approval, it's a, I guess it's an approval, but it's not a regulatory approval, it's an approval as the portion of the town that's in charge of deciding what happens at town hall, and so that's what they've requested us to do, to move this along for them so that they can take the next step towards, the project.
Was there a formal vote at the planning board?
There was, they voted,
Yes.
excuse me, they voted that it was minor modifications that they would approve that wouldn't require additional public hearing.
And the vote was?
Unanimous and supported.
Traffic safety as well.
Traffic safety. So we've got some people here I know are gonna wanna comment. Nancy wants to comment. I'd love to hear from our police chief if he cares to comment. And anybody else who has comments, I think we could just take some audience questions or comments. You wanna kick things off, Nancy?
On her way up, I wanted to mention one thing. There's a second consideration we're gonna have after this plan regarding some changes to the aesthetics and the flow of town hall that don't really relate to the site plan. So we might even ask for 2 votes, but that might also relate to what Nancy says. But there is a second consideration that you're not looking at,
Okay,
which I'm gonna present.
okay. Nancy?
Well, I have some concerns with this. First, I want to thank Sean. Sean spent some time with me because I was concerned when I saw this first plan. And he's told me some of the things that are constricting his choices. My concern with this plan is that it further separates the 2 parcels. And as you know, I was part of the committee when we purchased the next door parcel and when we studied what to do with it and took the suggestions from people that made us decide to bank it and wait till the most important thing arose. And a lot of volunteers spent time over there trying to open up, because our charge from the Board of Selectmen was to incorporate it into the main campus, to open it up so it would be part of the main campus. And then the library project came along, and the parking became a big issue. I don't know if you remember all the little L's in the parking spaces. So the Board of Selectmen had to write a letter to the commissioners assuring them that with the purchase of our new property, we would be able to address the parking issue. So we stopped what we were doing to wait to see what those needs would be. And I'm a little disappointed to see a stone wall going back up to separate the two parcels. Instead of putting walls up, we should be taking more down along that line. We should be opening the line up more because there are flowering trees and flowering bushes and things over there that make the property really very pretty. And we've lost a lot of green here with our building projects and paving for parking and so forth. It would be nice to extend our green on that side. We have the bookcase, the bookends beech trees on that property and over there. So to Michael's point, it would be nice if when you came in, the town hall piece was as nice and inviting as the library piece is going to be. I also think that we could have gotten a little more parking over there. I know we have the restriction of the DEP with the water line, but I think we could have extended and dipped in more. And a lot of people spend a lot of time to stop that parcel from eroding, so I would hate to see us have to come in from Washington Street again and have the water run down there and wash away. But the way this tank is positioned, it's right where the only access is for any vehicle to go through to the property. So I'm hoping that when this is done, instead of a curbing or something, there's a way for, if they need to bring the chipper in or they need to bring any piece of town equipment, that they're not going to have to come over the berm on Washington Street, that there'll be a way to go through there. And if we had dipped in a little more to the property, I think we could have swung around a little bit and gained a few more spaces there, but I'm not an engineer. I don't know what happened to the money that we went to town meeting for to get some engineering to tell us what we could do, so I don't know if that was possible. And I also was told that we couldn't go into the property and that was the last directive from the Board of Selectmen. And I questioned that because I know that at one time the aim was to go in and make the most of the property. And I do know that Mark Brandon was one that wanted to flip the property and didn't want anything to go on it. So I'm wondering if that came from that period of time when Mark was on the Board of Selectmen. So it would be helpful if you could clarify your position on that, and if your intention is still to make that property part of the overall campus and have the result of this project give us more of a town green, town campus view when you come onto the property. I did go before traffic safety when we went for the $10,000 engineering fee with a projected design, and they liked very much. I think is what is going to be addressed later, but they liked the piece of it that took care of an issue, a safety issue on the campus, with a further design here that isn't part of this. So I'll let Sean address that, because I think that's what you were referring to when this piece over here. Yeah. So I'm just a little disappointed that more things weren't addressed. And I know that when we started out, the library building committee's position was that it was about the building and not about the campus. But now we're looking at, where does the tank go? Where does the generator go? Where does the trash go? How's the traffic going? And even though they're going to move meetings over there, we know very well that those lifetime learning meetings and the meetings that will be held there will be parking here. So I was hoping we'd pick up a little more spaces, because we do have an issue even with the temporary parking that was put out here. So that's basically my comments on this, and I hope that you will support that we do not put the stone wall up that separates the two parcels. It'll save you some money, but it also will not make the separation between the parcels quite so distinct. That's basically what I have to say.
Okay.
Just on one of Nancy's comments, I do have a question about this, because I wasn't on the Board of Selectmen. I've never really heard much about the property next door. With taking this parcel away, how big does it leave that parcel? Does it make it a non-buildable lot if, for whatever reason, we ever decided to flip it again? Does this taking this parcel make it
I have a very
non-compliant?
simple answer. DEP would never let us sell that property. That property now owns half of our wellhead protection zone,
Okay.
and there's no way we could even petition them to allow us to sell it. We control the protection zone, and they're not gonna let us give that up. So you couldn't sell it right now if you wanted to, unless you could move the property line far enough outside of that 100-foot zone. It's not
How big is that parcel? I don't even know. I'm sorry.
It's a little over 2 acres, and the water table there would not allow you to build
Oh, okay.
a residence unless we get town septic and that kind of thing.
Just curious. I didn't.
But the reason that we were so anxious to buy it is it does protect our well, because if somebody built over there and changed the oil in their car or something, that would be. But the other thing is it allows us to have enough extra land for the equation should we ever have to do something with our septic system. So it's an insurance policy for us for many things other than the aesthetics or whatever. So,
If we get off of that well, we could probably do something more with the road. And the parking would obviously get better if we get the well out there. We're a little ways off from that.
I was part of the board that bought the property. In fact, I spoke in favor of buying the property at town meeting. There were other purposes beyond what Nancy mentioned. Those were important ones, but we were also concerned that one day we may need to expand town hall. And if we needed to expand town hall, where would that expansion go? So there was this idea that parcel was really necessary for the long-term for the town hall, the campus, the municipal buildings that were here. It was never the intention of any board that I was on to flip the property. There may have been a selectman or two who had a concern about it, but answering Nancy's question, this board has never taken the position that that property needed to be flipped or needed to be preserved so that it could be flipped. It's always been to keep it as needed for occasions just like we're facing today. We need it, we use it. And here we need it for the well, here we need it for parking. I also agree completely with Nancy that we can't block the road. So I'm assuming if you're putting a tank here, it can be driven over.
Yes, yeah, it would be very easy to open this. If you ever wanted to have access, just removing a little bit of the wall and losing 2 spaces would be a driveway. That would be a very minor modification.
No, I'm talking about driving over the tank.
That was gonna be.
The tank
You
is
can't
rated.
drive it over now.
Yeah, it's rated for a truck over, so you can drive over it. You wouldn't have to.
I've already parked on it.
Yeah, park on it, drive over it.
The wall that's being put back, we showed it because it's there. Most of it's been removed anyway by several different people over the years in the property, and most recently because it's a cut through about where those 2 spaces are for the contractor to get through. It's not an expensive wall, it's not hard to move. If we wanted to open it back up to make access, it would take an hour. I mean, it's not a big deal.
I'm loath to comment on anything aesthetic, but I think Nancy makes good sense that if you wanted, not putting the wall back up would integrate the campuses more, but it's not much of a wall.
The well bunker is a much more hindrance to integrating the campus
Right.
than anything.
Yep.
That's just unsightly. I mean, whether the walls, we could take the wall out and not change the plan. We can just ask them not to put the wall back when they're done picking up all the rocks over there. It's pretty minimal. What we don't want is if it's just parking spaces and grass, we don't want people inadvertently just choosing to drive over there.
Although it looks like there is a Cape Cod berm there, I don't know.
Well, that's just to keep your, front bumper from
Yeah, I was gonna say that's,
driving into the wall,
I generally don't drive over them, but maybe you do.
Well, this is certainly not how you design a site if you were starting from scratch. I mean, that's the thing. We've got a lot of there's just a lot of site constraints. It's a mess.
You had asked the police chief to comment?
Yeah, I think I would like to have the police chief comment if he wants to.
Good evening. First, I wanted to thank Mary Moore and Sean for keeping me included and updating me on the progress of this development or this construction. I went over with Sean roughly 2 weeks ago. We actually did a site visit to take a peek at the most concerning part of the town campus parking area as far as I'm concerned. And that's actually, if I can approach here.
Go ahead, sure.
Well, we've always had a concern of this corner of the lot. Some people have suggested it's because, my officers need to get out of, town hall real quick. That's not the case. My biggest concern from a safety perspective has always been that this is a choke point in here. So when people are driving down this lane toward the rear of town hall toward the police department, we've got elderly residents that walk behind there. We've got people that travel on foot over to the police department. There's a real difficult line of sight there. What's been explained to me through Sean is that this area has been expanded. Right here it says 22 feet.
Yeah.
And I think that would address most of our concerns with that stuff. So I'm supportive of the plan.
Okay. You make a good point about people walking there. What I don't see any pavement markings on here. Is there another sheet in the plan set that tells you where you're gonna put the crosswalks and the stop lines and things like that? You're gonna have people.
That's gonna go to phase 2, because there's one other change that's not part of this plan
Yeah, okay.
that
You wanna talk about?
get into now. I didn't wanna muddy up this approval with a change that the CM&D that I wanna present. But
Good.
maybe
I think it's kind of important to know what's going on here, Sean, overall.
Let me present what the
Can I make one more
Well,
point before you jump
please.
up there? Just real quick.
Yeah.
You mentioned aesthetics. I like that word. I do have a concern from a privacy perspective
Yeah.
with respect to the design of the sidewalk by what's my office, the corner of the police department. Because I do have meetings with persons in town that, share some very private things, and I'm sure that they wouldn't be too thrilled that, certain people could see into my window and, see that we're having discussions. So I'm hoping that we're talking about putting something up there to.
David would trade the generator outside your office for whatever you've got outside.
Yeah. I don't know if he would.
That's phase 2.
That's phase 2.
No, that's a point well taken. So you're in this corner here, is that?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Fence?
I don't know, something.
So, I mean, is there an answer to that, something simple, a section of fence or some arborvitae or something?
We look at, yes, fencing and planting. Pretty steep slope. I'm sorry, so it, this one here? Correct. Ah, I see, so, yeah, because this is the accessible route. Correct. It was done this way in order to, take advantage of the grade.
Sure.
So, while we're looking at this plan.
Yep.
I didn't want to jump into this, but the conversation's come up with Carol, Nancy, the chief. So, as I mentioned, this is all owned by the library to get repaved. In our capital plan, we covered paving all these sections that need it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that's come up, there's only 4 spaces in this short shot next to town hall. But there's the side exit, there's the connector now, which is gonna be a popular route. If you're leaving town hall to go to the library, you're not gonna go out to the street. You may not wanna go up those bluestone steps. You'll be able to walk out the side entrance and get right to this walkway, which is also ADA compliant all the way up to either level. So we're gonna propose, not as part of the library project, but simultaneous with the finishing of the parking lot, to possibly close this off. We'll net maybe a loss of 1 space in here, but probably not. We can take these 4 spaces, line them across here, and just make this a greenway, where we'll basically cut out all the asphalt that we don't want and leave the walkways.
So that makes it a true one-way around Town Hall
So
as
the
well.
traffic will be a true one-way all the way around. You can hook a right to the police station, everything exits.
Lot safer.
And that's why they didn't cover the crosswalks, because it doesn't make sense at the moment, but it will when it's a walkway and it'll go to this cross hash mark.
I'm sorry.
Keeping in mind, none of these are curbs, which was one of the last changes we made, because I was a little uncomfortable with that point. It's only painted. So A, we're not plowing around it. B, if we find that it's too tight, we can shift it.
I'm sorry, Chief, you said a lot safer?
I believe it's a lot safer, because if you look at the way this is constructed now, and it happens every morning. People come down this side of the driveway, obviously this side of Town Hall. You've got people coming in different directions, crews are going out this way. It's much safer to have it a one-way. And again, that word aesthetics, it makes it a lot more eye-pleasing, I think, with grass on that side than the pavement. And John and I discussed this, and we felt pretty comfortable that his guys could do the work there. And I think he agreed that when it comes time to hot topping the entire campus beyond what the library's doing, you'd actually have a cost reduction because you wouldn't have to use that much more hot top there, correct?
Right. That's about it. I don't
So
know if Nancy
that would be grassed in? What would that, how would that be addressed?
Nancy
Yeah,
had a great,
it would be grass, other than, a walkway connecting the front,
Yeah,
because there's an ADA compliant ramp off the front. And right now, if you come out of Town Hall, you have to basically make your way through the parking lot, down that roadway.
mm-hmm,
And either all the way to the front door of the police station to make a ramp to make it into the library, or to this, which is now a curb cut.
right.
But either way, you're going with the flow of traffic rather than down a walkway.
So that's okay.
Yeah, we've got a pinch point here where it gets as little as 13 feet. I mean, maybe what you can do then is reconfigure some of this grass too, because that's you guys are not gonna come out there fast with any comfort.
well, we're not gonna come out of there fast anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, but, where you're talking about the bench?
Yeah, yeah.
Where's
okay.
13
Well,
here?
this is the pinch point right here, between these two spaces.
13 and a half feet at the angled parking spots.
Yeah. Which isn't, wouldn't,
That's not really tight though, in a one-way. Remember, the state is supporting 10-foot lane widths on numbered highways.
yeah, I know, but it's still tight. I mean, you're gonna have.
Right now, it's deceivingly tight because the lines were painted.
You can have somebody stop to pick their kid up and back everybody up. You can't get by somebody at that width, and you can't
Probably, but the
get back
officers
into
aren't
it.
really going straight out right now anyway, because the assumption is
No,
someone's coming in at you.
that's right. That's right.
And
Well,
the chief's not here, Rick's here, but the chief looked at that and he agreed with it. The standpipe for this building is in here, so we still have fire department access either in from this way, or a fire truck is allowed to go the wrong way. They can actually reach it from the front with a short shot.
It's not a bad idea.
Actually, I like that. Again, your aesthetics with not having the Town Hall surrounded by pavement, that helps that a lot.
It definitely helps that, yeah.
And room for bocce courts, too.
Well, I
And a bike
noticed-
rack, which we don't have.
I noticed this plan also shows the access to the south, which we've been talking about for years. It's not on that, but on this plan that was just passed out, they have the driveway to the south. You may recall some,
That's not in consideration.
it's not.
That's Thursday's plan. We can't do that right now. That's a roadway to Solwyn.
Yes.
Yeah, no. That's not part of this.
I think Paul's question is,
Could we do
That's
that?
not,
Could we
that
do
goes
that?
across that well circle that I bet you
We
that.
can't do that right now. That would.
I'm not sure you can ever do it, because you're gonna be going through the circle, or you're gonna be going over the septic field.
Right.
Right.
that's a good part of that circle.
That would be after the town center gets the water system squared away and the well goes away. Again, that needs, I didn't wanna present that until there was a vote, that needs to be separate of
No, understood.
the vote for the library.
Well, I'm just concerned under the open meeting law that we have an insufficient agenda item. All we're talking about is reviewing and updating.
Yeah, it sounds like you don't want to vote, which is fine.
My concern of voting is my question that I asked. I have no idea what this costs and how this affects. I hate to vote on a plan that everybody says we have no idea. That doesn't make sense to me.
I just think if we're gonna have just to explain the open meeting law business, sorry to sound like a lawyer, but it doesn't say any votes are gonna be taken to approve anything today, either the secondary or the primary. And the voters are entitled to have notice that action is gonna be taken here. So technically, we could move to amend the agenda for topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance. But you only do that if there's an absolute necessity to have this plan approved. I mean, is there some
Well, there is. We
emergency?
submitted this plan to DEP without the owner acknowledging that they've approved it. As the owner of this plan.
I also think, Paul, it says, review a site plan. When you review a site plan, it's typically understood that you're doing that for purposes of deciding whether to approve the site plan or not. I don't think that's a big surprise to anybody.
When I read this, I didn't realize that any action would be taken. I thought it was gonna be a review and an update.
Yeah, I'm not sure what not voting on it's gonna do, since you just said you've already submitted to DP.
But, I mean,
You know, you got one guy who is concerned about the cost of that, which is a good concern, and Paul's concerned about the process, and that's a fair concern. On the other hand, I don't think any of us wanna slow things down.
voting or not voting is not gonna get the cost shaken out right now.
Yeah, Mike, I share your view.
No, it's
but I
not the
think-
not voting. I can't vote positive on something if I don't know what the costs of it are gonna be. That's,
The problem is I can't give you alternative B with a different cost. You don't really have that. A massive amount of engineering's gone into this on the assumption that when we get the cost, this is really the best we can do. We're trying to shake out a cease and desist, we're trying to shake out a combination of a couple projects.
We've been waiting since about January to get this plan, really.
What's that?
We've been waiting since about January to get this plan, haven't we? In other words, that's when we were working on the DEP and everything else. So this has
No,
been
it's
shaken
been
out there for a while.
Longer than that.
Longer, okay.
I should, if I could, just make it clear, I support the plan with Nancy's suggested modifications. That's where I'm at. And that's what I would vote for if I was comfortable from a legal point of view that there was sufficient notice to the public. I'm just concerned that the agenda isn't adequate from a technical point of view.
There's no expectation for a vote because there is no required vote needed for this to.
But I share Mike's view. I think reviews implies review and approve, review and reject,
We
review
definitely
and
voted to
modify,
support the
but
original plan.
I share Paul's view, which is I think this is a good plan. George, you make a good point in terms of the cost, and there's obviously some allocation that's gonna have to be made here between the town and the library, because there's some additional costs that are incurred to help with the townwide campus. I have no problem approving it, because this project is gonna get completed.
Right.
This plan makes sense to me. I would like to know the cost, but,
yeah,
I
I mean,
also
don't get me
don't-
wrong. I think the plan is good. I hate voting on anything if I don't know what the cost of it's gonna be.
I have no problem delaying the vote, though, until we have a different.
Even if it's an
posting on the
estimate,
agenda.
I mean, when,
You can vote it on Tuesday.
Yeah, we have a meeting in 5 days.
Right.
So what harm is done by letting my legal conscience be quieted by specifically saying, vote upon revised plan, two revised plans. One is the library revised plan, and the second is a town hall
That's fine.
revised
We
plan.
won't get George's question.
Could you have at least like an estimate, I mean,
I think what we could do is we could explain how the original budget covered some of the
That would be
costs
great.
in there. And what we haven't been able to tease out, as Sean said, is the investment on the generator that was gonna be covered by the town, the engineering costs that were gonna be covered by the library. We can try to,
that's fine, and it's not even, I don't need exact numbers, I just would like an estimate as to how this changes budgets that we've,
I think you're starting down the wrong path when you're talking about splitting up the costs and allocating. I think George wants to know what the cost is. It's all town money.
Yeah.
So it's a cost.
The allocation.
And the allocation piece of it is different. And, you know, as far as Sean's plan goes, I mean, I don't know if I want to approve that yet or not. I mean, in an ideal world, and I'm just going to say it, because I've been saying it for 3 years, we would have had a site plan that took into account all the stuff the town needed and all the stuff the library needed, and it would have been, you know, a unified, well thought through. Instead, we've got piecemeal, and we've got response to comments and response to problems and panic about getting stuff done. And I think you've done the best you can under those circumstances, but it didn't have to be this way. And the plan that Sean's coming up with, I think that's great. It's a step in the right direction, but it still may not be where we need to end up or want to end up. And so I don't know if it makes any sense to talk more about that now.
Well, I have a question about it, because you passed out this plan. You've said this part's not included, but is this additional parking?
no, that's just somebody's drawing, Paul, I don't think that's any, like.
This is still the Thursday design from years ago.
Right.
That was an exercise Thursday Campbell did about what could we do if we wanted to make the town hall parking a little better and incorporate some of the
Well,
caustic
why
property.
was this given to me?
Because they wanted to show, it was an
I don't know,
example of that, cutting off that road,
It was just to show that's correct.
that
I don't
one
even know how you
section.
got it. It just appeared there. I didn't even see anybody give it to you. Okay.
You could give it to me.
I might have handed it to you because I don't want to touch it. It's not mine.
It didn't come from me.
I also would say on the wall, I don't think I'd change this. I think we're a town with stone walls. They have some heritage value. It's something that the planning board values. They approved it like this. They're just rocks. If you want to move them and move them someplace else later, you can do it. I don't think it creates any psychological barrier. You've got 3/4 of this property line that doesn't have a wall on it. You know the properties are next to each other. You can see them. You're not going to be driving through there tomorrow. I just don't think it's necessary. And I think that it also goes to my point about this isn't the end point. If we're really going to try to plan the town hall campus, it doesn't end up looking like this, but these pieces have to be here for now. And some of them will have to be here forever because we need a water supply and a fire protection and parking spaces. No, I think they're talking about taking the wall that used to be there and putting it back and making it tilt a little bit. I don't think they're talking, it's not the Great Wall, it's just a wall.
No, I know, but that's an expense that isn't necessary if they're gonna, I mean, that's.
Sean, are your guys gonna do it, or are we gonna get some masons out there who are
No,
gonna
it's part of the project.
be
It's in the
dry
plan.
stacking stones? I mean, this is just it's a bunch of rocks in a pile in a row, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a farmer's wall. It's
Okay.
not a very
Thank you.
intricate wall, but it's not my guys anyway. It's part of the library
All
project.
right, but I mean, it's not, we're not hiring, masons from Europe to come over and build this wall, right? It's just
It
not,
might be, I don't know.
it's not like the guys I see going through Wellesley Center sometimes doing those fancy walls by the church and everything. Okay.
Just for the record, I don't agree with Mike. I don't think the wall should be reinstalled. I agree with Nancy. Having been here for,
We
A
didn't have
while.
anything in here about a wall on the agenda, though, so.
no,
I'm-
we didn't. It's all, this is all. But
No, that was a cheap shot.
It's a fair point to debate. It's just, what are we gonna do? We'll vote on it Tuesday, Paul? You comfortable with that?
yes,
All right?
Right.
We'll vote
I
on it
think-
Tuesday.
I've heard 3 expressions of support. Mike, I'm not sure where Mike is, but I mean,
Oh, I feel I'm very backed into the corner, and so I support it.
right, there's
That's
4.
how I feel.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Sean, you round two from you now, right?
Yeah.
We're still up here. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. This was never done the right way from the beginning. No, that's fine. No, that's totally fine. It's just, from the beginning, this has been
Regard.
horrendous planning process. Sean is saving this, but it's just, it's brutal. That was good.
It's just funny.
Was it?
You handed me this, it's like, I never saw it before.
I never did see it. I deny having it.
What it was they just wanted to show that piece.
I think,
that
did Sean hand it
digressed
to you?
it.
How did you get that?
Rick did.
Oh, Rick
It came from Nancy and Rick.
It's not unusual, Paul, that I would take something, hand it to somebody else, and deny ever having touched it.
It's on camera
I can't
that
even
you
remember.
I actually may have handed it to you behind his back.
I can ask Rick to clip the tape for that little.
Did you hear that? I think I actually
You
may
did?
have handed it to him behind your back while you
I
were
don't know
talking.
where it came from. I was minding my own business. And all of a sudden, this arrived. I don't know where it came from.
Oh, man, okay. Hello, Sean.
I printed a couple pictures too, but I wasn't gonna copy them 7 times. So I quickly gave you a brief bullet point, somewhat summarizing our activities since the several major storms we had at the tail end of winter, and most recently as we actually started to see spring. Just a quick synopsis before I even start, to put this in perspective. We only have 8 employees at the CM&D. 2 are considered land management, 2 are somewhat considered mechanics, foremen, and then laborers, and then myself being the 9th, I guess. So basically, since it stopped snowing, or while it was still snowing,
Snow today.
right? But I mean the blizzard.
Real snow, yeah.
Everyone that lives in town knows that we had a lot of trees go down, more than people can even imagine. We had a lot of wires down, and we have still a ton of limbs that are hanging over roads that are broken and waiting to fall. It's the result of a couple of things. It's a result of a very unhealthy forest that's come to be because of drought for several years of getting hurt by gypsy moths and winter moths. And it's just an aging forest. The oak trees in town are all in decline at different stages. The ash trees died quite a while ago. We're still having a lot of dead ash trees that have no limbs on them, just fall over. They're like 15-foot stumps that just fall over into the road periodically when they feel like falling. So we basically haven't stopped. Every day since the storm stopped, our chipper has gone out with a varying number of people with it. It's a lot of work to just head down the road. There's a couple of neighborhoods in town that people have seen us day after day after day. Those are the Harrington Ridge and Oldfield neighborhood that got completely demolished. Bogastow Brook looked like a war zone during both storms. We didn't hear a lot about it because they have underground power. But there was a point during the blizzard where we lost 3 trucks, a contractor's truck, the loader, and the backhoe all at once. I was in that mix. It took us like 3 hours just to get out of that neighborhood because trees were coming down behind us, in front of us. We're still cleaning that neighborhood up. We have about 8 or 9 days with the entire crew just cleaning up brush, trees down. It still doesn't look very good. And Harrington Ridge and Oldfield were the same way, except they have overhead wires, so they went the better part of a week in each storm without power up there. Just to put it in perspective, we have created about 50 truckloads of wood chips. 2/3 of those have been shipped back out. The other third is at the yard, and every day we obviously create a couple more loads.
Is there a market for those chips?
It's worthless to us. They're not worth anything. If we have to truck them out of town, we take them to Sam White's. They don't charge us. It's surplus to us.
Is there a spot to, the town of South Dartmouth has, Dartmouth has a huge chipper, the biggest chipper I've ever seen, and they have a pile that's just available for free for residents. Do we have a spot?
So there's a couple things we're working on. We used to have that. The site lended itself before we rebuilt the garage a little bit better. We don't quite have as big a stockpile. Currently, what we just changed was attempting to. It's in our best interest to just get them out of there. We can only hold about. We're overloaded right now with the 10 or 15 loads that are there in the bins. They're sharing space with the street sweepings and the materials that we need to have there to fix roads. So over the years, we've had people that have come in, farmers or people that have wanted it, that have a means of loading it, they can take it. What I would prefer is, and what we're going to try and enact, we have it on the website that there's surplus material, and we'd prefer to just, as we have it, bring it. Because we have to truck it somewhere. It needs to get loaded in one of our trucks and out of the yard. Unless we find a bigger place to keep it. And I'm actively looking for that. The town owns a lot of property and we don't utilize quite a bit of it. And it would be better if in the future we were mulching our own and composting our own and stockpiling chips and wood. It shouldn't be at 7 Butler Street. It's a pretty tight space over there. So for the moment, hardwood and chips are considered surplus. So we're going to have a list of people that want it. We look at the site and we'll go through the list and use those as sites to bring it to. It's still a lot of work to pick it up, but when we bring it back to Butler Street, we've now picked it up, put it down, and then we got to pick it up again. And that becomes a problem. Chips aren't as bad, but bringing logs back to Butler Street, or you risk breaking a truck, you risk the machine, or you risk the people that have to cut it up and get it there. We never get out of having to get rid of the softwood. A lot of pines came down in the first storm. It was mostly pines. That's completely worthless. And the only way to get rid of it is take it to someone like Sam White's or Landscape Depot that has a grinder. We still have to cut it into small enough pieces. So that's what we do. Or it goes out as huge log lengths via one of like a Stumpy's log truck, but that comes at a pretty high cost. And we've done that. There's been some huge trees that have come down. There's one still laying at the end of Hollis Street that needs to leave via a log truck. We can't even move it. It's too big to even cut.
Corner of Hollis and
Nason Hill.
It is gigantic.
It's almost a 5-foot diameter tree. The stump took out part of the road when it fell. So so it's been laying in a resident's yard since the first storm, the rainstorm. It's huge. You should go by it. Actually, no, I don't have it. David took a picture of it today. I don't have a picture of it.
Blue house. It's the Nyan houses. Yeah.
Can I just interject that the comments that I've heard from residents around town is one of great gratitude for all the work that you've been doing. And your being out there has actually been very visible and sometimes very noisy, but people are aware that you're out there and you're cleaning up. And there's been a lot of very positive feedback for the amount of work and attention that's being done to bring the town back. So let me express on their behalf our appreciation for what you've been doing.
Thank you.
Agreed, and on top of that, during the storms, I think I heard a lot of compliments on our roads versus some surrounding towns and how well they were taken care of. I think for your crew and contractors, just to get that and word back to them that they did a great job is important.
I've been seeing every morning, I see Eversource running new wires down South Main Street. Can you tell us?
So actually, that's not Eversource, that's Comcast. I don't know the science behind it, but Comcast decided to essentially recable the whole town. So on all the poles in town, there's a Eversource wires of varying voltages. There's Verizon and Comcast. Comcast decided to redo all of their wire in town. So yeah, that's what they've been doing for the past. Is Rick here? 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Are they putting in fiber, or what are they doing?
No, it's coaxial.
Okay.
They don't use fiber, Infinity. But they're gonna probably be here for a good 3 months, they say.
I say they've been there, they've been out everywhere.
Yeah, they're going to every house that they have as a customer and recabling. So it's not benefiting us on tree pruning or some of the other issues. A lot of the issues we have at the moment are Verizon related. Verizon owns the telephone poles in town. So a lot of the slow to get repair was pole resets. Because if a pole either goes down or snaps, Eversource needs to make it safe, but they can't fix the pole. And they can't retie the wires, although there was times we had Eversource crews or their contractors using tree ropes and everything they could find, looping wires up over tree limbs to hold the Verizon wires up so we could open roads, some of which still exists that way.
Can I ask just a follow-up question?
Sure.
At many points in the past, we've had arrangements with Eversource for them to come in and remove potential falls on their wires. And most recently, I think last year, they had agreed to take down, I think, more than 100 threats to their wires. And if I recall correctly, they did not complete all of what they said they were going to do. And from discussions I had with Eversource during one of the storms, they are willing to do more of that in the future. So can we put together a program to have Eversource come back into the town and take on some more tree work to protect if they protect their wires, they protect Comcast, they protect Verizon, everything else.
So I speak to them often. They're still here. They never actually left. A little bit of history on that. The Eversource started with a list 200 trees strong. And by the time they got through the public hearings, we lost 6 months, and the list dropped below 160.
And there were, what, 3 or 4 planning board meetings on this?
There was 3 and 2 site visits
Right.
to every tree on the list. So it took a long time. There was probably about 15 of those trees that I have the labels for because they fell before Eversource got a chance to pick them up. A couple of them cost us about $3,000 or $4,000 because if they fall and we have to pick it up, we're paying for it. They got most of the town tree list done before the storms hit. If anyone noticed Stanley Tree all over town right after the storms, they weren't here picking up storm debris. They were picking up a list that was residence trees that they got permission to take down as well. So there was the 2 different types of trees in Sherborn that exist, which is shade trees on a non-scenic road and then shade trees on a scenic road. And then they had an internal list that was resident trees. They're finishing that up now. Just the list that was town-owned trees, it was estimated that was about $250,000 worth of trees removed. Now, if you picture the first storm we had that knocked the power out to a couple sections of town for a week. That was only about 6 trees that fell, that did that much damage. There was a lot of limbs, but there was only about 6 trees that fell, took out wires, knocked poles down. 2 near Mike's house that closed both Hollis Street. They closed the other end of Woodland Street. So you can imagine if they didn't take 160 trees down, what we would have looked like. We owe a debt of gratitude to Eversource for doing that. I mean, it was their infrastructure, but it's our dying trees. And it's the result of years of not keeping up with our own maintenance.
I was going to say something about that. David sent me a picture today of a tree, I think it was on Bogastow. It basically rotted through at the base. It just fell over. There's not even any roots attached to it in the picture, very, very few roots. There must be other trees out there like that. I mean, that's...
Hundreds.
Yeah.
Most of town looks like that right now.
And so, but I mean, they haven't necessarily all fallen over, right?
No.
So how do we get after those and just get them down?
Well, if I could, this was, the point of my question was,
Good.
can we get Eversource? I mean, Eversource says they're ready to take more trees down. You say they never left the town, but can't we coordinate, maybe through the Public Safety Committee, coordinate and keep Eversource working on this list of trees? Because
Well-
the more trees they take down, they pay for.
Right.
Stuff, I mean, if we have to take down 100 trees, we're spending taxpayer dollars, which I'd rather not
Yeah,
spend.
my budget can't even take down 100 trees this year.
So that's why I'm saying,
So,
can we?
yes, we're
Work out a
working on
plan.
that. They're not in that mode yet. First of all, the trees have to leaf out for the arborists to do the risk assessment, more so than they're doing. They're still in triage mode, and so are we. We're still taking down trees that have split and are endangering the public way. And we can't get tree crews in to do it for ourselves. I have a list that includes at least half of the major roads in town that I need tree crews to take down all the broken limbs, and we're still waiting on that. So that's gonna happen. I hope that by the tail end of this year, we'll get through the hearings. We might wanna go for some public support this time, because the sheer volume of trees was a hurdle for the town to swallow. But they're dying at a faster rate right now than we're taking them down. So we choose to allow them to come down, or we risk them falling down. Because the other major cost is gonna be the pruning of the oaks. If you drive around before they leaf out in the next week or so, as you look up, a limb that doesn't have bark on it is a limb that's gonna fall. And it's either gonna fall on a car, a bus, or randomly on the weekend, and I gotta call crews in on the weekend to pick it up.
But a branch that's broken and overhanging a wire is one that you can get Eversource to pay for, as opposed to the town trying to get a bucket truck up amongst the wires. So, again, the same point I'm making several times is coordinating with Eversource. Because again, when I talked to them, they were quite ready to avoid the expense and aggravation at their end of putting wires back up and trying to do things in adverse weather conditions. They would rather, in good weather, do the work that's needed to protect their wires. So if they're willing to do that, and you have all this need, why can't we marry those two and get Eversource here protecting its wires?
We can, and we will, and I'll expect
that's what
the
Sean
entire
said.
board to show up to the planning board hearings. Please come. Please, because it took an extra 6 months to get through planning board hearings when Eversource had a list. So as willing as they were, we were not, and that's a fact. We weren't. And we grand bargained about 40 trees out that I would venture to guess that some of them came down in the storm and took wires down. I don't have a count of which trees they are because we lost track of them, but we took dead trees off the list that Eversource wanted to take
Because somebody complained and just said.
because residents wanted to keep them. About 40 of them. So we need to work with Eversource a little bit, and we know that we haven't for decades. But we have a responsibility too. There's a lot of trees that don't endanger wires, but do endanger people. They're either on the other side of the road, they have limbs that are getting, I took David by a limb today that gets hit by every truck that goes by out on Woodland Street. And the resident called me. You know where it is?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was behind a truck.
It looks like a beaver sat up there and chewed the thing and it's about to split and
I was
fall.
behind a large truck on Woodland one day, and I was wondering whether the limb was gonna come down behind
Right.
it or not.
And, I mean, that's on us. It's below the wires. It's never gonna take the wires out. It just takes out all the trucks that drive by it.
So one way you build political support is you convince people that you're gonna replant trees and you're gonna, still keep the town a green town, even though you gotta take down the dead ones. We should think a little bit about doing that too. Planting trees, replacing trees. Eversource is not gonna do that for us. We're not gonna wanna do it right on the paved edge of the road. But we should have a way to do it.
Mother Nature does a good job of replanting. My brother's the chief environmental planner for the state of Oregon, where they're pretty green. They tend not to replace trees because if there's an opening in the canopy, a tree will come.
Well, we don't want a lot of pine trees on the edge of the road, though. I mean, that's the thing. They'll grow anyplace, right?
Yeah.
But these hardwood trees that are coming down now, the ash and the oak, there's gotta be something to replace those.
Yeah, the problem is we put ourselves in a position, frankly, where we aren't gonna catch it for a couple of years.
We aren't gonna what?
We are not gonna catch this for a couple of years. We will have trees falling every weekend for the rest of this year. You can't drive down a single fire access road in town. If we have a brush fire, grab a hose. There's trees down everywhere. Most of the woods in town have been decimated. Just drive up Pine Hill and look up the hill. Go to the school. We took 15 trees down the other day on the Pine Hill access road alone that were all dead and endangering the road, which has been blocked at least 4 times this year. An emergency access road to a school, and we can't hardly keep it clear without all the dead trees falling on it.
That road was built with a big clearing on each side.
Right, but it's got 80-foot tall dead oaks on either side of it.
So what do you need from us, Sean? I mean, David and I had a little conversation earlier today where he talked about the need to supplement with contractors to get some of this work done. But I mean, do you have a plan for how to respond to this? I mean, are your 8 and 9 guys going to be able to handle this? I mean, it's
Slowly.
it's a lot of hours a week, but it also takes a lot of time to do this.
It does, and we are supplementing with contractors, but frankly, they're stretched to their limit. I mean, we selectively use them. We have, there's some ornamental trees in town that the town has that the garden club hired Dick Stoner to prune, and we have stumpies on call. I'll take them every day I can get them, but they don't come that often. They're still picking trees up off of houses. And we're still in the triage phase where we're going after the dangerous stuff. It's gonna take some time. It's gonna take probably till June before all the brush piles are picked up. But we're also picking up brush pile and turning around and there's another one. And we're not at the point where residents should be putting their brush out on the street, but they are.
There's a lot of brush at the edge of the road and sticking into the
Right,
road.
and some of it is still falling from trees.
Well, it
Because
doesn't
there's
fall
roads
into
that we've
piles.
cleared.
It doesn't fall into piles. The ones I'm talking about, unless it
Right.
does, but I
Right.
mean, the ones I'm talking about, there are piles
Right.
of sticks and branches. Sometimes it looks like a pile where you guys cut some big stuff off and maybe gathered
Right,
the other
and-
stuff, and you're leaving it there, you're gonna come by and pick it up, but some of that stuff is sticking into the road, and you're gonna have bikers and other people as the weather gets warmer on the edge
Right.
of those roads. That's dangerous. So we gotta deal with that stuff too.
Right, and we are.
Yeah.
But we can't hit every road at the same time.
Right.
It takes time, it's a lot of work, it's dangerous work. And if it's not like I can throw 10 tree crews at it all at the same time, I can't.
Right.
Nor does the town want to see that cost. I mean, it's gonna take a little bit of patience.
Sean, are we sharing any of the truckloads of non-pine hardwoods with the town forest firewood program?
As much as they'll take, yes.
I said that Bob's got a pretty good field to store it in, but it's,
Yeah. there was at least 6 loads taken there today.
I would say you're talking about 30 truckloads and 20 more to go, so yeah.
To date, any ones that have left have gone there. But we have to be somewhat selective. We can't take 3-foot diameter oaks to their, over there. Unless you're ready to go over there and cut some 3-foot diameter oaks.
I'll say my steel will go through a 3-footer, so.
So, that's about it. I mean, we've thrown the entire crew at it since the storms, and now we can't. We've had to we got the fields open last week. The baseball fields take some work to get open. And then it just becomes whether or not they stay dry enough. We got Laurel Farm cleared and opened. And we're starting to sweep the streets, which on a normal year, you can start sweeping the streets as soon as the snow's melting, and it takes at least a month. But it takes a month with almost our entire crew. It takes at least 3 people to sweep the streets. In all likelihood, it's going to take 2 months to get all the streets swept. And keep in mind, some of the more rural roads have brush that was plowed off them last fall. Because the first storm we were plowing after a wind rain storm last fall, then we had both bad storms this year. There's brush all over the sides of the road. We don't sweep that up. We need to either blow it up, clean it up, or blow it back in the woods. So everything's going to take longer than it normally would. And we got to start paving roads. Which leads me to,
Yes.
it was supposed to happen this week, but Green Lane and Rockwood Street will be graded and compacted Monday now. It was going to be Wednesday, but they got washed out. It was going to be Friday, but today didn't help, so that'll be Monday. And Cemetery Lane has nearly turned into a dirt road, so we're probably going to reclaim that and get that going. And a couple other side streets, and probably the next time I sit in front of you and give you an update, it'll be the entire list.
Good.
For Chapter 90 roads.
David, can we put this on the website? This update? Post that so people can see what's going on?
Good idea.
I printed a couple pictures I'll just shoot to you.
Good.
They're decent examples of what the tree crews go through. This has happened twice where what happens is we just take the tree crew and we pick a list and we say, all right, we're gonna go ahead of you down. The first one was a good example. We went down South Main, down 115. They spent an entire day on 115. That doesn't seem like a very long road. Just cutting broken limbs above. And the first picture is Paul's neighbor. You could drive by it, and my guys, I have 3 employees that drove under this for at least a week or 2 and didn't see it. It was about 30 feet off the road. It's about an 18-inch diameter oak tree that snapped about 30 feet above the road, and they didn't see it till they were standing under it. It would have wiped out all the wires. It would have wiped out any cars going under it. The next one is a similar situation. It was an oak tree, a resident tree. It was about 20 feet back off the road.
This is like radio. Do you want to pass those around? Or?
It was on Route 16, headed into, towards Holliston. You could drive under it, not tell it was broken.
Wow.
It was completely broken at the base, and another tree was holding it up. And it would have fallen across both lanes of Route 16 and taken the wires down.
And this is your,
And that was today.
yeah, nice.
Luckily, the soccer club got canceled today, so we got rid of the brush pile that we've been
It's a good rainy
collecting.
day to do that. That's nice.
Yeah, I mean, we somewhat lucked. I couldn't have done that if any kids were around, so,
Or if it was windy or anything, yeah.
right.
That's great.
Where are the marshmallows?
David was supposed to bring them.
So Sean, you're saying you need a large area still to put chips and wood? I mean, the town has property, right?
The Board of Selectmen owns some decent parcels, and George Fisk Group has some. I've been talking to him about the possibility of finding some land, not quite farm, but almost farm. I mean, it costs us a lot of time and money not being able to mulch. I mean, we're a rural community and we truck our stuff out of town. Doesn't really make sense. We pay money to get rid of leaves.
Right.
So we gotta kind of get back to our roots. We didn't used to do that.
Just talking about what we should do next door.
Maybe not. But, yeah, I mean, that's in the future plans.
Yeah,
Is,
okay.
is to be able to do those things. They're not, I mean, once it dries out, we'll be able to, the Barber Reservation, everyone knows, or should know, that we're gonna have the Grange Fair this year. So, a couple 100 tons of chips are gonna go there to
Sure.
fix the roads, but I can't get in there right now, destroy it, it's too wet.
Yes, you will. Yeah. All right, good, thank you. Thanks for this. Anybody have anything more for Sean? Thanks, that was very helpful.
Thanks.
You're spending more time at the Selectmen's meetings now than you used to even, aren't you? All right, so next is the Warrant and Advisory Committee report. I don't know, what are we doing with this, David? We're just looking at it?
Well, we got
We
time.
already voted support for
Yeah,
our
we
supporter.
pretty much did everything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, everything was on there, just in case anything came up, so it would be on the agenda. Yeah, if you look at the checklist, everything is voted except, the budget.
Well, do we typically vote the budget?
No.
I don't think we do.
Budget,
Well, the town, we don't vote the town budget.
right.
Advisory votes the town budget. Okay, so do we need to do anything with those questions?
You don't
or
have to
anything else?
do-
Paul, do we have anything we need to vote on?
Well, there's a couple of things here that is probably worthy of discussion. One is to find out if there are selectmen who want to speak, take a leading role on any of these articles. If so, we should make sure we know about it now so that we can accommodate that. And secondly, the planning board has apparently amended some of the zoning things since we voted to support those articles. So we may want to consider whether any of the changes made by the planning board changes our support for those articles.
And we have the language for that?
Yes, it's
Yep.
this thing that was passed out.
It's in the back, okay. Nobody passed it to me?
It's
I did not have it. Nobody handed it to me. All right, I got it now, Paul, thank you.
Next time we can have a process server serve you with it, so.
Can we, David, before or will you ask the planning board that maybe before the town meeting, like, we'll have a meeting before town meeting, right?
Yep.
That, whatever changes, that we can kind of just have a quick discussion with them so we know what their changes are that they're proposing, rather than,
Already set it up.
okay, great, yeah.
For that night, yeah.
Yeah, I still am concerned about this Article 18 and the limit to 3 people. And I think we have, I think there are real, I want this to pass, but I think we have real constitutional and legal issues with telling a family that has more than 3 people that they can't stay in a unit that they're renting, or disqualifying them from renting a unit that is large enough under the building code for them to occupy because they happen to have another kid, or they had twins instead of 1 kid, or somebody's mother needs to come live with them or something. It's not good. We should not be limiting the number of people in a family, which is what this does.
Well, that's why I flagged it, and I saw some memos that you were involved in or copied on.
Well, yeah, I kind of instigated a couple of things. I asked our town council to give us some advice, and I would think, did that advice get to the planning board, David? I would
Yeah.
hope it did. I thought Gino was copied on all that.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of surprised they haven't addressed that.
They did not make any changes in response to that. At least they haven't yet.
And it's a shame because I really do want this to pass, but I also don't want to put the town in a position where
Well,
we're
as
exposed if something happens.
a zoning expert from all your years on the Board of Appeals and from your professional work, do you have an amendment that you think would take care of Article 18?
I don't think we should be limiting the number of people. They've limited the size of the unit to 1,200 square feet. They can limit the number of bedrooms in the unit, that's totally fine. What you can't do is limit the number of people, except for health and safety reasons.
That makes sense. I was happy to see the increase in the size of the accessory from 800 to 1,200 square feet. I think that's reasonable, but yeah, I agree with you, Paul. Mike,
That makes sense.
So your proposal is to delete paragraph 1,
1A.
I think so, yeah, 1A.
paragraph 1A. So why don't we make that recommendation?
You could say such unit shall be occupied by not more than one family. You could say that. One, you know, or not more than one family or two people unrelated by blood. You could say that.
Yeah,
But
not more than 2 unrelated people. I
or
think I've
three
seen that
unrelated
in
people.
zoning.
Yeah, or 3 unrelated people. You can
Right,
say
right.
that, but what you can't say is not more than 3 people and have it also include a family.
So I'm trying to press you to give us some words. Do you want to add all of those? Do you,
I would add after not more than 3 people, I would say not related by blood. Or not more than 3 unrelated people.
so could I move that we,
Presume.
send a memo to the planning board with this with the recommendation as moved by, as written
Yeah, I
by
think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Second.
chair?
I don't know if you need a formal vote. That makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
All right, all in favor of that? So David, can you do that?
Yeah.
Have you let Gino know?
I did.
Just did? Okay. Thank you.
Has he responded yet?
No,
All right, number 2, they've fixed some of the noise language. I think they're gonna get pushback on the 75 decibels, even though,
I think we also get some pushback on the 10, moving it back to 10:30 PM.
yeah. It's too bad, I mean, they should be able to do this, but,
Does it change our support of the article?
no. I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
The
So,
farm stuff, let's see.
they put the sound stuff in on the back page.
Yeah,
Front page is the same.
yeah.
This doesn't change my support for the
Yeah, it
article.
doesn't change my
Me neither.
support either.
Yes, I agree.
That was fine.
I think those are the only
Solar
3 they
thing we
changed.
voted not to do.
Right, they only changed those 3.
And the open space they had already fixed, right?
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see if we get any of these open space developments. You know.
Be good.
No, it would be good. I just don't know if the reason we didn't get any is because nobody's gonna build them, or if we didn't get any because the bylaw was bad. But this is an improvement.
But a lot of developers will, maybe we didn't, I think a lot of times a developer will come in, look at your zoning bylaws. I know as with my contact with a lot of developers, that's what you do. You go and say, first question I ask as somebody financing a development, what can you do by right? And now that this is something by right, it's
Yeah.
something a developer will consider that they might not have before.
Good. Yeah, no,
That
that's
makes
good.
sense.
All right, so we don't need to do anything more with that. Was there anything else we needed to revote, or, I think we went through absolutely
Yeah, we
everything.
voted on everything.
No, it's just a question whether somebody wants to take the lead on any of these
Well, I'm gonna
articles.
take the lead on the, select board one. And, I will also probably speak to a couple of the zoning ones. Does anybody else wanna speak to any of these?
Well, on some of the financial ones, I'm hoping that George, as our financial guru, would,
I mean, a lot of these, I don't think if we want to say that we support them, I mean, we've already voted that we support them, but I don't think we don't need to like, especially if they're presenting for the capital items, I mean, we don't need to add anything to the presentations that the
Yeah,
people are
unless there's some
making.
pushback, in which
Right,
case.
right, exactly. Then we
which
can
case
make a comment.
I think that makes sense.
I mean, rather than prolong a
Right.
already long meeting,
Yep,
Yeah,
I think we jump in if we feel like.
right. I'm happy to jump in on the governance task force,
Yeah.
but I don't anticipate that that's going to be
And again,
controversial.
like Mike said, I think, especially on the farm events one, I would love to voice my, I think that's gonna be talked about a lot, and just voice my opinion like I did at the advisory public hearing, just,
Right.
so.
yeah, so would I like to speak in favor of the farm events one.
okay, great,
All right.
good. We're done with that. Nancy, would you like to speak as the tax collector now? you had asked to speak? You were late, but we're still going to let you speak.
Hopefully you've canceled all tax bills.
I don't think that's what she was going to say.
We don't hope that, Paul.
that's the
Have you seen the budget?
Well, it seems to happen every year at this time of year, especially among our boards that are so busy with town meeting and hearings and all of that, that you forget right around the corner is tax due day. And I did get a call from someone today who had not received their tax bill, and that's not terribly uncommon. So I'd like anybody who owns property in Sherborn that didn't get a tax bill to give us a call so we can get the information to you in time for you to pay it on time. And we always encourage that you don't wait till May 1st. But we do have online payments, so you can do it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and not even leave your house. So we encourage that a lot. Go to the town website, go to the payment center, and just follow the instructions. And that was basically, I just wanted to do a reminder because we do get busy at this time of year and people forget, so.
Thank you, Nancy. Thanks. Sorry, it took me till 9 o'clock to remember that you asked to speak.
And kudos, the online burn permit could not be easier.
Yeah.
It is just so much nicer than having to go in and wait in line to get it.
May I just say that we've only had 3 people come over the counter. They've all been done online, which is great.
Get me a little nervous over the counter, that's what
That's where I thought she was headed to. All right, good. Okay, so we've got a town administrator report at all, David?
No.
No? Do we have any selectmen report? I
Yeah,
know
I
George
have-
wants
I have
to
one.
report.
On Friday, April 6th, I had breakfast with the Council on the Aging. We had a great discussion about some stuff that I just want to put out there for us to consider to put on an agenda, especially once we have our full 5-member board. One is one that I've been talking to a couple of people just from my role in advisory. I'd love to put together maybe a subcommittee, just do some more long-range financial forecasting for the town between us and advisory and the school committees, just so we have a better idea of things that can be, we can do some forecasting based on potential developments, that kind of thing. I think there's some people in town with a lot of great expertise on that kind of stuff that we could take the lead and really pull people together to do that. One other thing that was discussed that day, and I thought it was a good idea, a few former selectmen were there, and they said that back when they were selectmen, they had some, kind of like advisory does their liaison assignments, where now that we have a 5-member board of selectmen, maybe we could look into, each of us have responsibilities to other town boards or committees that we kind of keep in touch with, and it opens up the communication between the Board of Selectmen and, say, the Board of Health, or, those other boards that we don't necessarily have a lot of contact with. One thing we talked about earlier tonight was a town campus traffic pattern. There was somebody very concerned that he was going to get hit by a car. And I think there's a good discussion around that. And lastly, I think maybe with the governance task force, this may come up, and about more regionalization, looking into more regionalization of services. Not just, well, with some services at the town level, but also, I know the school committees started talking about studying a full regionalization of the schools rather than just at the middle school and high school level, to see if there's any cost savings, any potential, resources from the state that could come from a full regionalization. And I think the Board of Selectmen should be involved, especially communicating maybe with the Dover Board of Selectmen to look into that.
Just one comment on the issue of liaison assignments. That was discussed many times by prior boards and decided that it had more disadvantages than advantages. And I could try to recall all of the issues on both sides of it, but I think the concern was that all of the board members wanted to have equal access to information from the various departments, and not to have one person at the board level who had more information on issues than the other board members. And the second issue was that the board should not be bypassing the town administrator and having direct interface with department heads and maybe establishing communications that leave the town administrator out of the chain of command, if you will. So there were a lot of other reasons. I'd have to, you're sort of catching me by surprise on this issue, but there were some lively discussions here at the board level and past boards on.
I see what you mean on the liaison assignments, not so much to the departments that report to the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator, but I'm saying in more open communication with boards like the Board of Health or with the school committees, which we don't really have a lot of contact with. They don't report to the town administrator. So those kind of things where we could open up more communication with boards that we don't necessarily have a lot of contact with.
You know, and I think we talked about this a few years ago, Paul, when it was a 3-person board, and we made some effort to divide up and you know, focus some of our efforts. I remember I went to some planning board meetings. It's very time-consuming, but I would also say, from the perspective of somebody who's been the chair now for the last few years, by default, the person who gets those calls is either the chair or it's somebody who's got a personal connection. And maybe just formalizing it at some level would at least provide an easy point of entry for somebody if the chair of the school committee or the chair of planning wants input on something, or conservation commission. Not that they don't go through David, but that they've got somebody on the board who they at least know to direct comments to and shares the burden a little more. I think that might be a good thing, but I also, you know, I also share your concern that we're not going to cut David out of the middle on the communications. But I do think people are going to reach out to me. You know, Mary reached out to me on the library stuff, and she's reached out to me plenty of times. Maybe she reaches out to other people too, and I don't mind talking to her, and I'm happy to know what's going on. But I think probably from her standpoint, it's good to know that there's somebody she can call who's going to answer the phone, you know, on behalf of the selectmen. And if it's not me, then, you know, I wouldn't mind if she was calling you or Chuck, just as long as there's somebody they know they can count on. So,
Well, as I say, I participated in this kind of discussion numerous times, and I need a little more time to think of what all the pros and cons were, and there were pros.
we should put
That's
it
why
on
I
a
said we
future
should put it on an
future
agenda to
agenda
talk
at some
about it.
point.
You know,
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring these items up. There were some things that came up in that breakfast and things that I've been thinking about, so.
That's great.
Yeah, and I think some of it, when Mark and I were sort of leading the effort on General Chemical, I thought that made sense and worked well. It certainly didn't mean that any other member of the board shouldn't feel free to participate and jump in at any time, but it's worthy of discussion because there are good arguments for and again.
Okay. Anybody else, Paul, any
Yeah.
reports? Yep.
I found in my inbox a copy of the offering statement that the town issued for $3 million worth of bonds. So, and I see the treasurer's here, so I wanted to compliment you on an excellent job of getting that together. Comprehensive, covered so many details about the town. It was amazing to read, very informative statement. I assume that the offering was successful and somebody bought our bonds.
We had several offers, and we did choose the one that was advised to be the best.
So again, I wanted to commend you for leading that and getting that done. And I noticed it did cover a variety of projects, so that we now have funding for those different expenditures by the town.
Had a good team.
And it was a big job. I mean, it's a thick document, and it's packed with information. And not just financial information about the town. I focused on the statement about lawsuits and contingent liabilities and stuff like that, but a lot of people will find it very interesting. And it is a publicly available document, so if there are people out there, maybe even sending a copy to the advisory committee so that they have that information might be useful.
Two shout-outs for upcoming events. The police department on May the 18th is doing a blood drive at, I think it's one of the mobile units in the Pilgrim parking lot. And if I recall correctly, Chief, it's for Dana-Farber? Correct. And it's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. I've done this in the past. It's a wonderful community service. So the information I saw was on Nextdoor Sherborn. The other public service announcement is there is a candidates night at the community center on April 30th, Monday at 7 p.m. I think it's focusing on the two contested races for one of the seats on this board and the Board of Health. But
Other contested races for the regional school committee.
I'm sorry, the regional school committee. Thank you. But you know, both are worthy of our time and attendance.
There isn't going to be a shadow debate with you in an empty chair?
I have lots of conflicting views. I think Libby may be in the other seat.
All right, good, thank you. So we've got a executive session proposed, not to return to public session. I'll read the statement if I can find it. There we go.
At the back of the.
Excellent. The board will now consider entering into an executive session under Chapter 38, Section 21-3 to discuss strategy with respect to potential threatened litigation, since an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the position of the town if so declared by the chair. This is with respect to a police department matter. The board will not return to open session. I need a second and a roll call vote.
Second.
Second by Selectman Yan. Mr. Durensis?
Votes aye.
Mr. Yan?
Aye.
Mr. Morrow?
Aye.
And I'll be aye, having passed by a vote of 4-0 at 9:04 PM. The open session is closed. We are now in executive session.